Hey, high school ministry, Scott Foster here, coming with our daily devotion from the book of Philippians. And the passage I have is Philippians 2, verses 12 and 13. And the funny part of this passage is I went to college with a guy who became a very famous filmmaker. And he filmed a movie called The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And it was this horror movie that is pretty scary, and probably your parents wouldn't be happy if you watched. But the premise of the movie was that this little girl who was possessed um, was battling against this evil so that the world could see that God is real. And I think the danger of the movie, even though the person went to a Christian school with me, is that I think it makes people think that salvation somehow is this thing you have to work towards. And so when you look at this passage, one of the things you have to realize is Paul starts off, maybe not in your Bible, but in the language by saying therefore. And so it ties back to the passage that was before it, which is the idea of who the person of Christ is, and that Paul wanted to be freed from prison, and he wanted so significantly to come visit these people that he loved so that he could see the growth and the beauty and the oneness of Christ in this new church in Philippi. And so when he says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, which is really the crux of the verse, I think you need to understand a couple of things. One is there's nothing you can do to earn your salvation. There's no amount of work you can do to earn connection with God. It's a free gift. I'd love for you to jump back to Ephesians 2 today and take a look at that passage, Ephesians 2, specifically verses 8 to 10, because there's so many passages that talk about the idea that salvation is a free gift. But I also think then it says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. There's another thing that I think a lot of us probably wrestle with, and it's the idea that I think in the Christian life, we want the fast pass or the easy instant adventure to spiritual growth. We want to go from someone who believes and trusts that Jesus is who he says he is, and that he is the hope and salvation we can have through belief in him and confession of sins. But the reality is we then want to jump ahead and become these spiritually mature giants without taking the steps of what the Bible calls to sanctify us, to grow us, a process of actually developing our faith. And there's an author named Eugene Peterson who wrote a book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. And the reality is that the Christian life doesn't happen easy. It's not like instant food or the microwave. It is a series of slow steps. There's going to be uphills and downhills. But the reality is we're supposed to continue to pursue God in everything we do. And in this little 2-verse section here, Paul really goes on to say, and I want to challenge you that your faith isn't just for you. It's for the greater community as well. And so there's a part of our faith that we like to really individualize. It's me and God, my pursuit of God. But really, he's designed us to be part of a greater community. And then lastly here, I want you to think about this is I grew up with a dad who was a 6'6", 285-pound policeman. And if you were in trouble or breaking the law, you'd be very afraid of my dad. But as a kid who knew my dad loved me and who I loved, instead of being afraid of him and kind of what he represented, it put me in a place to where I had awe and respect for him. I wanted to live a life that pleased my dad because I loved him and I knew he loved me. And God has us in that very same vein, as so much of the Bible is not, here's a list of things you're not supposed to do, but the idea of like, I want you to know me so well that you know that my heart is for you. And I want your life to mirror me. I want your life to look like me. And so Paul is challenging this church and these people to live lives in this healthy respect. Awe and fear isn't like horror movie fear. It's respect for God. It's a life that reveres God, that wants to please God, that really wants to draw close to God. So I hope this helps you today. I love that you guys are a part of the high school ministry. I love that you're doing daily devotions. I think that's one of the steps to help and grow us. It's important for me. It's important for you. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week and that we can end this season of quarantine soon. Blessings, guys. Bye.